Well, hey there, and welcome to this webinar on happiness and busyness at work. This is a topic that we've seen come up again and again and again when we visit workplaces to work with their leaders or their employees to create more happiness at work. It's a complaint we hear again and again. You know, we like our workplace. We have great coworkers. We like our jobs, but we are just too darn busy. We are constantly behind. We're constantly swamped by too much work, and we're constantly feeling busy. So that's what I want to address in this webinar, and talk about, you know, of course we're busy and everybody's busy these days, but does that necessarily have to mean that we have to be miserable at work? Or is there actually a way to be happy and busy at the same time? And I think there is, and let's look at that. Ironically, I've noticed that the turnout for this webinar has been somewhat lower than for our two previous webinars, and I'm sure it's just because those people who really need it are just too busy. So anyway, I hope I can give you some tools to think about how you can create happiness at work, even when you're busy for yourself, for your team, for your workplace. That's the goal of this webinar. How bad is it? Let's look at that. Let me show you the result of a study here. This is from the Families and Work Institute report back in 2005 called Overwork in America. And these are some of the findings they came up with. 26% of employees were overworked often or very often in the last month. 27% were overwhelmed by the amount of work they had to do often or very often in the last month. And 29% often or very often didn't have time to step back and process or reflect on the work they were doing during the last month. And of course, this is not good, okay? This points to maybe a fourth, maybe a third of employees actually being really, really busy and way too busy at work. And remember, this report is from way back in 2005. This is 10 years ago. Since then, we've had the financial crisis, we've had the crunch, and a lot of workplaces have been forced to cut back, which often leads fewer employees to do the same amount of work or even more work. So in my opinion, this has probably only gotten worse since then. These findings are backed up by a study that we did back in 2011. We asked 1,000 Danish workers what made them unhappy at work. We gave them this entire list to choose from. And when we saw the results, there was a clear top three. And you can take a look at this list and you can try and guess, you know, in your opinion, what do you think the three biggest factors are that make people unhappy at work in Denmark? And I was quite surprised with some of the results. But anyway, the top three were these. And you can see in third place, the third biggest happiness killer in Danish workplaces was just being too darn busy. And people commented on things like, you know, in our workplace, we're just constantly behind. There's always more work to be done. We're never done with our jobs. And even if we magically somehow could manage to complete all our tasks, the only thing that would mean would be that we'd get more tasks. And we're constantly being berated for falling behind and not achieving our goals. So this is a very, very common phenomenon. This is something we see in so many workplaces now, and something that I do believe we need to change, and I do believe we need to deal with. What are the solutions? Well, you know, we could cut down on the amount of work, but I'm pretty sure that's not going to happen. We could hire more people, which would be awesome, and I think that's a great solution. The only problem is that if you're already behind in a workplace, then hiring more people actually in the short term can actually make it worse, because then you have to spend time training those people, and then only later on do they actually help and actually reduce the busyness. The third solution is, of course, that we can work more hours. I think that's a really bad solution. I'm going to talk about why. And the fourth solution is that we can become more effective and productive and try and become even better at our jobs. And I'm going to talk about how we can do that. And I do believe that the only way to do that is if we're happy at work. If we like our jobs, that makes us more productive. I'm going to go into that. So that's the plan. That's what I hope I can give you in this half hour. I know everybody's busy, so we're going to keep this to half an hour. As we go along, ask me anything. There's a chat window on the right-hand side of the screen. You can ask me any question right there. And for everyone who did sign up for this webinar via our website, we will be sending out the slides, so you'll be getting all of these. And for those of you who have no idea who the heck I am and who we are, this is me. I founded Woohoo back in 2003, and we make people happy at work. We do speeches, workshops, keynotes, management trainings all over the world for a lot of different clients. We've written a number of books about happiness at work. This is the first one, which is currently out in 7 different languages. And next month, it's coming out in Turkish. I'm very excited about that. These are some of our clients around the world where we do speeches, workshops, management trainings, that kind of thing. And these are all the countries we've been to. And actually, this is already outdated because I was in Iceland 3 weeks ago. That makes it 34 countries that we've been to, and we still haven't updated this slide. We will very soon. Now, there is one very important point to remember whenever you talk about happiness and busyness at work is that some people are very busy at work, but some people have simply convinced themselves that they're very busy when really they aren't. And this can create a conversation in the workshop where it's almost about one-upmanship in that you have to demonstrate and show that you're busier than everybody else, right? Well, you're busy. Well, look at my workload, right? And this is a really bad competition to get into. There's it's almost like if some people believe that in order to show that you're a committed employee and that you're valuable to the company, you should be really busy all the time. And if you can somehow manage your workload and you have plenty of time to do all your tasks, then that would indicate that, I don't know, that you're not working enough or something. It's kind of stupid, but people do feel like they have to compete on showing how busy they are. And I think we need to change this conversation. Just as an example, I heard about a person who did a master's thesis on a group of Danish nurses who felt that they were constantly overworked. And this person found that they were constantly really busy. And one of the reasons why they were so busy was that they spent an hour and a half each day talking about how busy they were. So some people just convince themselves that they're very busy when really they aren't. And I think that's something to watch out for and something we need to be very careful about. And I actually think that if you can keep people happy at work, they won't feel this constant pressure to show how busy they are and to compete on being stressed and being busy. Whenever we have a question like this, I kind of like to take it to attack it, to go at it from the positive side. So here's a question: can you think about a time where you were very busy with something at work, but you were still happy at work? Can you think back to some specific project or task or job related, anything that you worked on that you were under some amount of time pressure, you were really busy, you had a really tight deadline or whatever, but you still felt amazing, you were still happy at work? Try and think of a specific situation like that, and certainly for me, I can think of many situations like that where I've been working towards some goal. There's been a lot of time pressure and we've been very busy, but it's still been a lot of fun and something we really enjoyed working on. Just recently, just these last few weeks, we've been working to finalize our new international Woohoo partner platform. It's been a real time crunch. There's been a lot of uncertainty and a lot of different tasks we had to complete, and honestly, I really enjoyed that. It's been a lot of fun because I could see that we were getting somewhere. I could see we're approaching the goal. We released it today. The first people are already using it and are saying they love it, which again makes it amazing for me. Now, why are some tasks actually awesome, even though you're very, very busy? I think it comes back to, and let me go back to the slides here. I think it comes down to the two factors that make us happy at work, and according to our theory, which are results and relationships. Results, when you know that you're doing great work, you're doing something important, what you're doing has purpose and meaning to you. And relationships, you're working together with great people, you feel accepted, appreciated, liked in the workplace. Those are the two major things that make us happy at work, according to our research, when we look at all the science out there. And if you look, I bet that if you look at a situation where you were really busy at work, but still really happy, it was because you had these two, or both of them, or at least one of them. So let's say you're really busy with something, and you can still see that you're getting somewhere, you're getting great results, your work is still purposeful, you can see why, not just what you're doing, but why you're doing it, and you have great relationships. So that even though everybody in the team is really busy on this project, you still have a great relationship with your coworkers. There's a great mood in the office. If you can hang on to those two results and relationships, then you will be happy, even under time pressure, even when you're very, very busy. However, what often happens is that we don't, right? When we come under time pressure, when we become really busy, what happens is that we lose results and relationships. For instance, results, okay? Let's say the deadline is really tight and you're not sure you're gonna make it. Let's say there's just too much work and you're constantly falling behind. Then there's a good chance that you will lose your feeling of results. You will lose this sense that you're actually doing good work, that you're actually making a difference, that you're actually good at what you do. And that will make you less happy at work. So it's very, very clear that time pressure, that being constantly behind, reduces our sense of results, our feeling of being good at our jobs, our pride in what we do. And that tends to make us unhappy at work. What about relationships? Well, very, very often, relationships are also hurt by by time pressure, by being too busy. And there's a fascinating psychological study that shows this. This is one of the most famous studies in all of psychological research. And the study is called From Jerusalem to Jericho, and it's a study in busyness. And here's what they did. The study is from way back in 1973, but it's been replicated any number of times with the same results. So here's what they did. The researchers went to the Princeton seminary in Princeton, New Jersey, and they recruited their test subjects among these young men who were studying to become priests. And what they did was that they brought these young men, the test subjects, into a room one by one. And the young men were told that, here's the thing, you have to prepare a speech as part of this experiment. There's a panel waiting in another building, waiting to hear your speech. And now you have some time to prepare your speech and make some notes so you're clear on what you're going to say in this speech. And the young men then they were sitting alone in this room, and they got some time to prepare their notes. And then the researcher came in and said, okay, now it's time to give your speech. And they got this message in 3 very different ways. So a third of the test subjects got the message saying, you still have a couple of minutes, but why don't you just head over there now? You have to go up through this door, turn left, go down the sidewalk into the next building, up on the 2nd floor, and the panel are waiting to hear your speech there. You have time, but go there now anyway. The second group were told the same thing, but they were told, oh, and by the way, we're running a little behind. If you could hurry, please hurry over there as much as you can. And the third group were told something like, oh my God, what are you doing here? You should have been there an hour and minutes ago. We're running late. Hurry as much as you can, go there now, okay? And then, and now they leave and they go there to do their speech. And as often happens in psychological research, the researchers are lying. The real experiment here is not about the speech. The real experiment takes place out on the sidewalk. Because out on the sidewalk, there is an actor pretending to be seriously ill, okay? He's hunched over, he coughs a few times as the young man walks by. And the real experiment here, the real question is, will that person stay and help? or will that person walk right by? Now, there are three different conditions, and you can ask yourself, just think for a second, you know, in each of those three conditions, how many percent of these young seminary students do you think stayed and helped? And here's what busyness does to us. And because here are the results for each of those three conditions. And this is not a pretty picture, right? The first group who are a little busy, 2 out of 3 stayed and helped. When they were medium busy, 1 out of 4 stayed and helped. And when they were very busy, 10% stayed and helped. 9 out of 10 walked right by. In some cases, they actually had to walk over the actor pretending to be seriously ill. Interesting question, by the way. And by the way, if you want to look up the original article, these are the notes on it. And here's the kicker, by the way. Do you know what they were giving a speech on? They were told to give a speech on compassion. Yes. They were told to prepare a speech on the parable of the Good Samaritan. You know, this traveler who stops on the road to help somebody who's seriously sick or seriously injured. And yet, when they were very busy, 9 out of 10 just walked right by. And this, I think, is very indicative of what busyness does to us in the workplace, does to our relationships in the workplace. So when you're very, very busy, you are much less likely to notice that other people need your help. And even if you notice that they need help, you're much less likely to help them. You're much more likely to focus on your own needs and to make sure that you know, you can cover your own work, and you know, you may not feel that you have time to help other people. We also know from other psychological studies that busyness has a large number of negative effects on us. It makes us more stressed. It makes us more irritable. It makes us more short-sighted. You can only focus on what is right in front of you. It makes us less able to prioritize resources well. It makes us less less generous. So it has a really, really large number of negative effects. So I think what's clear here is that if you're not careful, then being busy at work will harm both results and relationships, and that will ultimately make people unhappy at work. And what's so sad about that is that can lead you to a negative spiral. Okay. So people are busy. That way they become unhappy at work. That makes them less productive. That means they fall even further behind. That means they become even more unhappy, and you get this actual death spiral, basically. And that is why it's so important that as a workplace, as a team, as a project team, as a department, you can hang on to results and relationships, even when you're very, very busy, even when you're falling behind, even when there are tight deadlines. And the good news here is that if you can do that, then people will remain happy at work. They will be more productive. You will get more work done, and you will be better able to deal with the workload that you have. So this is not, again, this is not, you know, soft-hearted. This is not naive. This is actually the best way to deal with the workload in the workplace, and make sure that people don't become stressed and frustrated with the workload they have. So hang on to results and relationships. How do we do that in practice? I wanna give you 5 specific tips for how we do that. But before we do that, I want to show you how not to do it. Because in a lot of workplaces, the answer to busyness is to work more hours. You know, if we're falling behind, let's make people work 50 hours a week. Let's make them work 60 hours a week, 70 hours a week, and that's just not going to work. As you can see in this graph, which charts productivity and overwork, productivity for 2 different people. There's one graph that's flat. That's a person who works 40 hours a week. That person has steady productivity. A person who then goes to 60 hours a week will actually, for the first few weeks, get more work done. But after 4 weeks, that productivity will fall below what a person working 40 hours a week gets done. And this actually means that overwork can actually be counterproductive, that you might actually get less work done when you work more hours, which makes it even more frustrating, because that means you just fall more behind. You fall more behind while you're also hurting your private life, because every hour more you spend, 20 hours more at work is 20 hours less you have to spend with your spouse, your kids, your friends, on your hobbies, with your family, on the rest of your life. So it's hurting your private life, and it might even, according to this research, be hurting your performance at work. So I don't believe that permanent overwork is a solution. Temporary overwork, absolutely. There's a deadline in 2 weeks. Let's work really hard to meet that deadline. That can actually be a lot of fun if we can hang on to results relationships. Just to mention an example, there are 2 Toyota mechanic shops, garages in Gothenburg in Sweden that 8 years ago, they moved from a 40-hour work week to a 30-hour work week for all of their employees. And it turns out those employees actually get more work done in 30 hours than other Toyota mechanics do in 40. So that's a very clear example of the fact that working more hours does not necessarily lead to getting more work done. So how can you do this in practice? How can you hang on to results and relationships even when you're very, very busy? Well, first of all, you can focus on what you get done. And what often happens when we're busy is that we lose that focus, and we start to focus only on how much we're falling behind. So if there's some way that you can highlight for your team, for your project team, for your group, how much work they're getting done, could you make a graph like this in your office and show everybody, this is how much work we're getting done this month, so people can actually get that feeling of results, that people can actually feel that they're getting somewhere. Can you create meaning and purpose in your work? So not just what you're doing, but why you're doing it. So you can remember that we're not just slaving away at this task. We're actually helping people who really need our efforts. We're helping our coworkers inside the company. We're helping the clients. We're helping a broader cause. We're helping the environment, the society, or whatever. Just remember that you're not just plugging away at some tasks. You're actually making a positive difference in the world. Working hard on something that is meaningless is a chore. It's frustrating and it's hard. Working hard at something that is meaningful and purposeful to you personally can actually be very, very rewarding and a lot of fun. Tip number 3, remember to make time for relationships, even when you're very, very busy. I talked to a lady from IKEA. She worked in the decoration department, the people who set up the displays in the store. And she said that they were working really hard to put up the summer displays for the summer market. And then suddenly, her boss comes over and says, "Come with me." And she's like, "Oh my God, am I being fired?" And he pulls her into a room, and it turned out, it was her birthday, and they remembered. And then there was a cake, and there was coffee, and there was tea, and all the coworkers were there, and they sang a birthday song. They even though they were incredibly busy, they still took 15 minutes to celebrate her birthday. And that actually made her very, very happy. And it was only 15 minutes, and then it was back to work. So I think that is a great example for what you can do for relationships, even though you're very busy. Tip number 4, make time for slack. And what I mean by slack is free time. There's got to be time for reflection, time for evaluation, time for learning. If every single moment of every single workday is filled with tasks and meetings and phone calls and whatever, how are you ever going to improve? How are you ever going to get better? How are you ever going to learn? It's so important to have time for slack. We visited a company in Ann Arbor, Michigan called Menlo Innovations, and they could do a couple of really cool things. One of them is that they have no overwork ever. Okay, their employees only work 40 hours a week, no matter how busy they are. No overwork ever. And the second thing they do that I think is really cool is that out of those 40 hours, you will only have scheduled work for 32 of those. So 32 of those hours are filled with actual work on projects. That means there are 8 hours left for learning, training, interaction, relationships, everything else that takes place in the workplace. And I think that is a great example of making time for slack. It is so important that you do have time for other things than just working on projects, working on the next task. And the 5th and final tip I want to give you is to help each other. When you are busy, it is incredibly important that you feel that you have help, okay? That you feel that other people are there for you, that if you're falling behind, you can actually get help. People will be there for you. Being busy and knowing that you can get help, that's fine. Being busy and knowing that you're on your own and nobody's there for you and that's just too bad is actually really bad for us. So how can you help each other even when you're very, very busy? Which again is a paradox, because when you're busy, you don't feel you have time to help others, which makes everything harder. And just to mention an example, something we saw recently, there's a software company in New York called Next Jump. And they have some internal awards for their employees. And what I love about this is that their most prestigious award, the finest award you can get inside a Next Jump, goes to not the best employee or the one who sells the most or whatever. It goes to the employee who is best at helping others. Okay, the one who's really good at making others good at their jobs. That's the person who gets this award. Which I think is absolutely amazing, and it shows the value of helping each other and valuing the people who are really, really good at that. So those were just 5 very, very broad tips on how you can hang on to results relationships even in very, very busy times, even under tough deadlines. Now, I'm looking at the questions window and I'm not seeing any coming up, which means I must have done an awesome job. God, I'm good. God, I'm good. So if you have any questions, you can always email us. You can always reach us, and we'll be happy to answer any of your questions around this. My guess is people are just too busy to ask any questions. So, so I'll say thank you for watching this with us. Thank you for being interested in happiness at work. And I really sincerely hope that this video has given you some idea of how to hang on to that feeling of happiness at work, even when we're very, very busy. And I do believe that that is the only answer to combat this epidemic of stress and frustration that we're seeing in a lot of workplaces these days. Thank you so much for watching, and stay happy.